Have you ever wondered why the poorest places on Earth and the wealthiest estates look exactly the same on a visual level? If you travel to the most impoverished slums of Africa or South America today, you will see streets lined with dusty, plain white walls and homes with nothing inside but a few broken stools. Yet, if you switch channels and look at the multi-billionaire elites visiting their mega mansions designed by world-class architects, you will discover the same thing. Rooms filled with bare grayish-white walls, minimal furniture, and floors made of raw, unpolished concrete. This phenomenon is incredibly bizarre. Logically, shouldn't the wealthy live in gilded, glittering opulence? Why do they abandon luxury to pursue a minimalism that looks virtually indistinguishable from absolute poverty? Meanwhile, why is the middle class, caught in the middle, the only group completely buried under cheap items, plastic clutter, and Amazon delivery boxes? Welcome to Elevated Horizons. Elevate your perspective. See the world clearly today. We are talking about the class attribute of aesthetics. I will take you past the surface to see through the illusion. To put it bluntly, aesthetics is the most invisible moat between classes. The wealthy use minimalism to manifest their absolute freedom of choice. The poor are forced into minimalism because they have no choices, and those desperately trying to climb the social ladder are often the ones who fall directly into the aesthetic traps designed by the system. Before we officially begin, I want you to perform a small action. Turn around and look at your surroundings right now. Is your room piled with things that you don't use now, but might need someday, which are actually forever useless? Is your desk cluttered with cheap trinkets you bought just to get free shipping? If you feel trapped by these things, type "trapped" in the comments section, and let's see how many people share your exact struggle. Let us first deconstruct this visual paradox. Picture two mental images. On the left, the house of Mark Zuckerberg, or a top Silicon Valley tech giant. Bare walls, massive windows, and a space so vast and empty you could play soccer in it. On the right, a temporary shelter built by a homeless person under a bridge, similarly stripped of possessions. Many would assume this is just a coincidence, but if you think that way, you are being naive. In sociology, this is known as visual convergence. Think about it. For the underclass, emptiness is born of absolute financial inability. Their walls are bare because they cannot afford paint. Their floors are concrete because they cannot afford marble. This minimalism is a helpless reaction to survival pressure, but for the top elite, this emptiness is the most expensive thing in the modern world. In our modern metropolitan cities, what is the most expensive commodity? It isn't gold, nor is it designer bags. It is space. Specifically, the idle state of space that can be wasted. Think about it. In a city where real estate costs tens of thousands of dollars per square meter, being able to leave 100 square meters completely empty is a silent decoration to the world. I do not lack money, and I have the ultimate leverage to waste this space. What is more striking is that this visual convergence is actually a massive maze set up for the middle class. The middle class is the most anxious group in this society. They want to emulate the high croupier sophistication of the wealthy, yet they cannot shake their terror of falling into poverty. Caught in this tug-of-war, they turn their homes into awkward, cluttered showrooms. You see, many middle-class renovations claim to be minimalist, but if you look closely, it is a pseudo-minimalism. Their cabinets are stuffed with cheap alternatives. Their minimalism is bought off a shelf, copied straight from a magazine. This aesthetic is merely a crude imitation. Why does this happen? Because the middle class has not grasped the most underlying logic. Minimalism for the rich is an active power, while for the middle class, it is a passive form of consumption. The capitalist system is incredibly clever. It knows you yearn for that sense of ethereal emptiness, so it packages that feeling and sells it back to you. It tells you that if you buy this white speaker or that Nordic-style chair, you can own that premium aesthetic. The result: the more you buy, the narrower your space becomes, and the further you drift from true minimalism. This creates an absurd trap. The wealthy consolidate their class status by throwing things away, while ordinary people drain their savings trying to buy newest products. You swipe your card frantically, trying to fill your psychological insecurity with objects, completely unaware that every minimalist trinket you buy drags you one step further from true financial freedom. In reality, behind this aesthetic misalignment lies a brutal battle when conspicuous logos, golden chains, and luxury watches become accessible to anyone via stack. This cost is the key divider of human destiny. Deconstructing this expensive absence reveals that minimalism is actually a combat-ready state for the wealthy. What are they defending against? What are they trying to save by reducing household clutter? This leads to our core premise. In the world of wealth, what is the one resource that even God cannot grant the wealthy a single extra second of? Simply put, it is your attention, what we call cognitive brain power. Have you noticed a fascinating trend? Previously, we thought the rich had to dress like mobile luxury display cases, draped in loud logos to prove their wealth. But that playbook is obsolete. Why? Because the game has changed. When luxury bags and designer clothes can be bought with a simple swipe of a credit card on installment, visual wealth depreciates. It no longer separates the elite from the crowd. Thus, true elite Masu, a far more sophisticated, hard-to-imitate signal. Expensive absence. What does this mean? It means, even though my space looks empty, you cannot afford this level of emptiness. Take a simple example. Many long for a minimalist interior, believing a coat of white paint and a few white IKEA cabinets will suffice. But what they don't know is that the white in a top-tier mega mansion is entirely different from the white in an ordinary apartment. That the wall might use an incredibly rare lime plaster to preserve its pristine texture, the house must run a medical-grade air filtration system 24 hours a day to prevent dust from settling. That empty living room might feature a wooden table that looks like a raw plank, but its tolerance for humidity and temperature is exceptionally low. A slight deviation, and this million-dollar piece of wood cracks. Think about the invisible cost. Hiring a dedicated property manager and flying in specialists annually for maintenance. This minimalism is a social signal filter set up by the wealthy. It delivers a sharp message. I have enough capital to sustain these seemingly useless idle resources. More importantly, I have the time and energy to manage these fragile high-maintenance assets. If you are an average person squeezing onto the subway daily, stressing over a mortgage, your life is too fast, your environment too noisy. When you get home, you just want to collapse on the couch. You cannot sustain a laboratory-grade sanctuary, so when you scroll through minimalist lifestyle influencers online, do not be deceived. Without that underlying maintenance capacity, your minimalism will quickly collapse into a disaster. But if you think elite spend this much money just to show off, you are underestimating them. What they are actually buying back is the most expensive and easily stolen resource of this era. Your attention. Let to be honest, the only truly equal resource in this world is time. Even the world's richest person has only 24 hours a day, and his brain's processing capacity is finite. The top elites realized long ago that clutter is visual noise. Think about it. If your home is filled with miscellaneous items, even if you don't touch them, your brain is subconsciously processing that information. That package isn't opened yet, that old fan needs to be thrown out, that corner needs cleaning. These micro-rights are like background rogue software, constantly draining your cognitive energy. This is why Mark Zuckerberg and Steve Jobs famously wore the exact same outfit every day. They didn't lack the money for clothes. They recognized that deciding what to wear every morning is a waste of precious brain power for them. Making a multi-million-dollar business decision consumes the exact same energy as choosing which socks to wear. If they deplete their energy on trivialities, they will falter on critical decisions. Therefore, by stripping their homes of clutter and keeping life simple, they build a cognitive sanctuary. Through minimalism, they quit all background applications, concentrating all their energy on core decisions. In the language of wealth, this is called protecting mental bandwidth. The great irony is that while the elite do subtraction to keep their minds sharp, the consumerist system. Recall the last time you picked up your phone to check the weather, only to find yourself ordering an air fryer you didn't need from a live stream 30 minutes later. Why? Because you, like most of us, have become the target of cognitive exploitation. The system uses precise algorithm, vibrant colors, and countdown timers to aggressively hijack your attention. This leads to a brutal truth. The rich use minimalism to preserve their brain power to make more money. This leads to a brutal truth. The rich use minimalism to preserve their brain power to make more money, while ordinary people are led by the system to waste their finite brain power on choosing cheap goods, eventually buying a mountain of clutter and locking themselves into a material prison. Do you ever feel this way? Sometimes you feel incredibly tired, not physically, but mentally exhausted. Even if you did nothing but scroll through short videos all day, your head feels heavy. That is because your cognitive bandwidth has been blown apart by fragmented high-stimulus information. If you are in this state, I suggest you stop and think. Is your room a sanctuary or a dumping ground slowly? If you can stand up right now and discard one item you have touched in a year, you might feel a long-lost sense of relief. But why do we keep buying, hoarding, and possessing even when we know it drains us? Why does the middle class become the social group most unable to escape this material curse? This involves a deeply buried financial trap designed specifically for those with some money but a profound lack of security. In the next section, we will discuss the silent force behind this endless purchasing. This force is the shopping apps and recommendation algorithms we interact with daily shopping shelfily seamless. Previously, you went out to buy what you lacked. Now, as you lie on your couch, the system calculates what you might lack or invents a need you didn't know you had. This is the clutter hell. The system exploits a vulnerability in our brains, our addiction to instant gratification. When you see a $1.99 item with free shipping or a countdown for an air fryer on a live stream, when you see a countdown for a purchase, your brain releases a hit of dopamine. This pleasure has nothing to do with the item's utility. It is the thrill of possession and scoring a deal. The capitalist system uses these micro-stimuli to trap the middle class in a loop. You'll buy an organizer today, a trendy water bottle tomorrow, and fitness equipment you'd never use the day after. Individually, these items are cheap, tens of dollars, so you buy them without a second thought. But have you done the math? You bought your apartment for hundreds of thousands of dollars, yet you use that premium real estate to store cheap industrial waste. Your living room slowly becomes the system's landfill. Worse, this constant buying drains your mind. You spend hours reading reviews and waiting for discounts. For the sake of saving a few dollars, investing this energy drains what you should have spent upgrading your skills or contemplating high-dimensional wealth logic. Instead, you buy managed storage bins only to find your room more cluttered. You fail to realize that if you do not cut off the source, no amount of storage bins can save your life. Let us dig deeper. Why does the middle class have such an obsession? Why do we feel empty and need to buy things to feel grounded, even when our rooms are full? This traces back to our parents and the scarcity memory etched into our DNA. Our generation, and the one before us, lived through hardship. The terror of having nothing to eat or wear has become an intergenerational psychological trauma. Even if your bank account is healthy and you live in a modern apartment, the impoverished child inside your subconscious has never left. The moment you see cheap goods, that child screams inside your brain. That child screams to buy it immediately. What if we can't afford it later? What if prices go up? This is why the middle class fears an empty table. To them, emptiness represents danger and deprivation, not luxury. They must pack their homes with spare tissues, extra cooking oil, and backup appliances to feel a fragile, artificial sense of security. Why can the rich afford minimalism? Because they have immense resource acquisition capacity. They know that, even if they empty a room, they can replace anything within 5 minutes if needed. This confidence frees them from needing physical objects to prove their safety. The middle class lacks this control over the future. They feel suspended in mid-air, fearing job loss or class demotion. The hoarded clutter becomes their final line of defense. This psychology is exploited perfectly by the consumerist system. It tells you to love yourself, add ritual to your life, and define your success through material possessions. Thus you become a hamster on a wheel, and your hard-earned money turns into a household burden. This burden is both physical and aesthetic. When your life is saturated with cheap homogenized goods, you lose the ability to appreciate complex, profound information. Your eyes and brain have been overstimulated by loud colors and aggressive marketing. You have become addicted to low-frequency stimuli, losing your capacity for deep, quiet beauty. The system drains your wallet while systematically lowering your aesthetic threshold. When a person loses the capacity to perceive deep beauty, their cognitive level plummets. The brutal truth is that while you pay to look like a sophisticated middle-class citizen, the puppet masters watch your bank balance and smile. How does the system use visual and auditory tricks to rot our aesthetic capacity? Why do loud, chaotic videos keep us hooked? In the next section, we will discuss the global visual purging targeting the human brain. Do you ever feel that short videos are getting brighter, the music louder, and the cuts faster? This isn't for your entertainment, it is aesthetic force feeding. Our brain cells are picky eaters. If you feed them whole grains that require deep thinking, such as classical music or a dense book, the brain feels tired initially, but its capacity to process complex information grows stronger over time. But the system does not want you to grow stronger. The system wants you to be an instant pleasure machine, so it feeds you high saturation, high frequency, logic-free visual trash. These inputs are like refined sugar for the brain, giving you an instant rush while permanently lowering your aesthetic threshold. Gradually, you find yourself unable to watch a video longer than 3 minutes or read text longer than 500 words. You become entirely immune to deep, quiet beauty that requires patience. This is aesthetic lock time. When you become accustomed to a laugh every 3 seconds and a plot twist every 5, your brain is formatted. You lose the capacity to digest complex wealth, logic, or deep societal dynamics because you're colorful garbage. The rich understand this perfectly. This is why a core pillar of elite education is aesthetic isolation. They have their children learn piano, oil painting, and read dense classics to train their capacity to process complex, deep information. Meanwhile, ordinary children are left with digital nannies and loud visual assaults, slowly eroding this capacity. This is a form of cognitive castration. If you think aesthetic Lockstein is brutal, the next scene will shock you further. Let us shift our lens from the crowded middle-class living room to the absolute bottom of society. There, minimalism reveals its most terrifying raw face. Many love visiting old towns or impoverished areas to take photos, finding a raw, simple beauty there. But if you lived there for a single day, you would realize that this simplicity is actually extreme life squeezing. In that class, minimalism is not a design style. It is a survival lockout. When a person wakes up, wondering where their next meal is, or how to pay their child's tuition, how much space is left in their brain to contemplate beauty or the meaning of life. This is the exploitation of cognitive bandwidth. Brain power is finite. When survival pressure corners you, your brain is occupied by a sense of scarcity. You become short-sighted, focusing only on immediate survival because you lack the bandwidth to look ahead. In this state, your empty room is empty because you cannot afford furniture. Your bare walls are bare because you have no energy to paint them. This minimalism is built on sweat, anxiety, and barren desperation. The supreme irony, this underclass suffering is converted into consumption material for the elite. Notice how the fashion industry loves industrial ruin or homeless chic aesthetics. Luxury brands sell pre-distressed dirty sneakers for thousands of dollars. This is the distressed or ruin aesthetic. Why do the wealthy spend fortunes on things that look poor instead of clean, polished items? This is an arrogant class game. In elite circles, when luxury brands no longer prove exclusivity, they pursue authenticity. An average middle-class person treats a luxury item with extreme care, fearing scratches or stain. This anxiety betrays your class. You are still exhausting energy to protect material goods. The top elites want to prove they are so wealthy they do not care. Spending thousands on dirty shoes proves they do not need cleanliness to demand respect. They have the financial leverage to throw money away. In sociology, this is semiotic plagiarism. They take visual symbols forced upon the poor by labor and poverty and label them rebellious, artistic, and high fashion. This creates an absurd scene. The poor strive to buy clean, respectable shoes to avoid discrimination at job interviews, while wealthy heirs wear pre-distressed sneakers to parties to discuss raw street aesthetics. This is the cruelty of aesthetics. It not only defines beauty but packages human suffering into a luxury consumer good. This aesthetic mismatch exposes a brutal truth. In this world, not only is material wealth stratified, but the right to define the visual representation of suffering belongs entirely to the rich. The rich can experience poverty minimalism. The poor are locked in a permanent minimal. Faced with this aesthetic assault, do ordinary people stand a chance? If we are accustomed to low-quality content, how do we launch an aesthetic self-recu? Let us examine the financial mapping of aesthetics. We will map your aesthetic preferences directly to your bank balance to see if your spending on beauty helps you climb or simply fills the pockets of the rich. Let us examine this invisible funnel. For the elite, beauty is space, silence, and high-dimensional time management. They buy the empty room that keeps their brains efficient. Consequently, their wealth compounds within that strict order. The middle class defines beauty as the opposite of this order. In the middle class's eyes, beauty is possession, brands, and labels of success. You buy designer bags, expensive satsuki, and clothes with loud logos. You believe you are investing in yourself, but you are actually paying taxes to the rich. You pursue material volume which depreciates the moment you swipe your card. You buy liabilities, while the rich sell you their traps. As a result, middle-class wealth leaks away through endless spending to look beautiful. The underclass is locked in survival needs and instant gratification. The cheap fast food and noisy videos drain their final energy. Their money circulates in the swamp of survival costs, never escaping. Thus, your definition of beauty secretly dictates the direction of your wealth. Reclaim absolute control over your mind and money. Escaping this aesthetic lifestyle begins not with earning more money, but with a mental clearance. You must realize your aesthetic preferences are largely fed to you by the system. First, you must cut off the source. Check your phone right now. Delete apps that push low-quality content and induce impulsive shopping. Even doing this for a single day will clear your mind. This is reclaiming your cognitive bandwidth. Next practice, material subtraction. Stop chasing package sophistication to look rich. Dare to own an empty room and a clean desk. When you remove the clutter, your capacity to process complex issues and deep logic will return. This emptiness is power, not poverty. It tells the system, I refuse your trash. By keeping your space empty, you define your own environment, then actively seek out difficult beauty. Read challenging books. Listen to classical compositions that require patience and observe the raw patterns of nature. These do not offer instant gratification, but they rewire your brain cells, helping you build an independent. When you master the capacity to process complex information, you achieve a cognitive class leap. In this era, the rarest asset is not information, but the capacity to deeply process it. When you no longer buy brands or hoard clutter to find security, you cross the invisible class wall. What is the defining trait of those who truly transcend class? It isn't their net worth. It is the truly strong no longer need objects to prove who they are. They wear simple clothes, live in clean spaces, and spend their wealth on compounding assets and enriching life experiences. They are masters of space, not slaves to material goods. This is the ultimate logic of aesthetics. It is designed not to make you look pretty, but to make you free. When you no longer need objects to prove who you are, you cross the wall, you realize a quiet view costs more than a designer couch, and an afternoon reading a book is more sophisticated than any live-stream shopping spree in this noisy world. Preserving your independent aesthetics is safeguarding your final mental sanctuary. I hope this preserve independent thought. Like and subscribe. In this era of algorithm feeding, many believe they are free, but they are actually just revolving inside the aesthetic traps carefully woven by the system. If you can start today by stopping meaningless possessions and trying to face your true, perhaps empty but fully potential self, you will discover that the true logic of wealth is very simple. It is your deep understanding of this world. When you are no longer deceived by appearances and can see through those expensive symbols to read the class codes behind them, you have already received your ticket to the high-dimensional world. This freedom is something no amount of money can buy. Therefore, please guard your aesthetics, guard your attention, and guard your independent right of choice as a human being. Every like and follow we give in this era is actually casting a vote for the world we yearn for. I hope you cast it for your cleaner, more independent, and freer self. Finally, I want to leave everyone with a quote. In this materialistic era, minimalism is not for saving money, but for saving your life, preserving your independent, non-commodified soul. If today's content inspired you, or you are preparing to launch your own aesthetic poverty alleviation, welcome to share your plans in the comments. Let us elevate our perspective and see the world clearly together. This is Elevated Horizons. Elevate your perspective. See the world clearly. We will see you next time.